Hey everyone, thanks for joining us here at Book Blather. If you're new here, I'm Dave, this is Olive, and we try to have a little fun while we talk about books and sometimes some other things to help spread the joy of reading and other things. So today we are actually doing a tag. If you've been around for a while, you know that we very rarely do tags. We've only done a couple tags the whole time we've been on BookTube, and they've been special ones that we did for, special reasons. But we're kind of warming up to the idea. And a lot of our friends have been, people got used to not tagging us because we don't do them. A lot of our friends have been tagging us a lot again. Right, Olive? You need a little pick-me-up? And a number of people have told us that, they said they like to watch the tags. They like it helps them learn more about us and things. So we're warming up to it. So we're going to actually try to make like a little run here and try to make up some tags and do some tag videos. And you guys let us know if you like them. So we're doing this one. So this one is called the off the top of your head tag. And this tag was just, we're doing this one because this was just done by our partner in crime, Gareth, over at Book Songs and Other Magic. And he relentlessly tags us. And, he's our partner in crime for our fortnightly live show, Is This Thing On? Which I'm always plugging. So come check us out every other Thursday. And so, but this, so he tagged us, but this was originally created by Gina at the Library Mouse, who I did not know of until we were tagged for this tag. So I just went and checked out her channel, and I'm going to be, I encourage you guys to go check her out too. So I'm glad to have learned about Gina's channel. So what this tag is, we're going to try to keep in the spirit of what Gareth said. It's called Off the Top of Your Head tag. So you're supposed to not do a lot of research into this. So we did pull a couple books, but we tried to keep in the spirit of what was said, and we only gave ourselves 15 minutes to think about this and these answers, and then we went and collected the books that we could find quickly. So we tried to keep in the spirit. So some of these answers might not be our perfect long-term answers, but they're the ones we came up with quickly. So we're doing it loose tonight. We have a drink here. Hopefully, we don't usually do, but hopefully nobody minds. So we're keeping it loose tonight. So we'll get right into it. So learn a little bit more about us today, right, Olive? So the first one is, what was your favorite picture book as a child? And I actually had could have had an answer very similar to Gareth's. Gareth mentioned that he had one of his favorite books as a child was an animal encyclopedia, that he learned all about animals. I also had an animal encyclopedia that I still remember fondly to this day. I read it all the time, learned about all sorts of animals, learned about all the animals. I loved that book. But I can't remember what that book was called, and I'm not going to copy Gareth. So one that I will mention that I do remember very fondly is The Monster at the End of This Book. I think that was the title. I don't have a copy of it anymore, of course, but this book was actually published in 1971, a couple years before I was born. And I remember loving this book as a kid. Later in life, when I had my own kids, I downloaded this book onto my iPad, and I even had an incident one time. I was traveling for work, and but some woman was having trouble with her little son next to me on the plane. And so I whipped out my iPad that had this Grover book, The Monster at the End of This Book, and asked her if it was okay if I showed him, and it was like magic. He read this book numerous times, had a great time reading this book on my iPad. So it's a book about Grover. It's a great, cute little book. And I'm not going to spoil it. You should go download it and read it. It's a great book for any kid. What series did you love as a child? So for this, I don't have copies of these anymore, but as a kid, we loved the Hardy Boys, Olive wasn't born yet, but I loved the Hardy Boys. And this was a series, I always thought of as like the boy version of Nancy Drew, which I think was a little more popular, but the Hardy Boys were brothers, Frank and Joe, I think were their names. Frank and Joe Hardy, and they were brothers, and they were like kid sleuths. They were like these amateur detectives. So all these different, there was a whole bunch of Hardy Boy books, and they were all, each one of these, they were solving some mystery. So love those as a kid. I don't know what I did with that whole collection. I must have donated them or passed them on to somebody. Okay, number 3. The worst book you have read or tried to read. So we're moving out of childhood books here. So for this one, I mentioned this book once or twice before. This author's going to end up hating me, but the book that what I would call the worst book that I have read is this, Devil's Day by Andrew Michael Hurley. And so this is, I say, the worst book I've ever read because I think this book, this might sound a little funny, but this book is the book that I have been the most, that I can remember being the most angry at. Obviously, it's not the most poorly written book ever, but I was just very, very angry at this book. And the reason was I had picked this up because another booktuber had recommended it. And they had, they had referred to it as like a very like spooky gothic tale. And he had written another one here on the title called The Loney, which got a lot of acclaim. It was supposed to be a great book. So I was like, okay, this sounds like one I can't go wrong with. So I'd asked for this as a gift, and I think it's for my birthday or something. And we were going on a vacation to Hawaii, okay? So we got one of these like special like vacation, like try out the vacation club deals where we got very, very inexpensively got to go to Hawaii for a week. And so this was like a big dream vacation of ours. I hemmed and hawed over what was the book that I was going to take, what was going to be my vacation book for that. And I just hemmed and hawed back and forth and everything. Finally, after all this really, really, really debating, I ended up going with Devil's Day. And it was horrible. I'm not a DNFer, so this is one of those books that and it was it was the book that I brought on vacation. So I just pushed through. And you're just 100 pages in, you're 200 pages in, then you're 300 pages in, and you just keep telling yourself it's got to get good, right? Like it's going to turn around and it's going to redeem itself at some point. Never did. I pushed all the way through. Basically the story was about these 3 families that lived in like a very rural area that interacted with each other and had some conflict. Very, very small minor allusions to maybe something, supernatural going on. Nothing happened in this book. The entire thing, absolutely nothing happened. And if I was at home, maybe it would have been different. But because I had picked this as my dream vacation read, I was so angry that I had selected this book to bring on vacation. So this is actually a big joke in our house where like we talk about a book and was the book that great? No, it wasn't that great, but it wasn't Devil's Day because I never had been so angry at a book before. So I do not recommend that one. Okay, next, your favorite reading or book memory. So, this would not be I don't think my favorite. Like, I have a lot of like good book memories, and it would take me a long time, I think, to try to rank and decide what was my favorite. So I just picked a relatively recent, fond book memory that I had, because I only give myself 15 minutes to do this. And so I think a lot of like great memories with books actually they're not just the book itself, but it's a good book in a nice setting. It's just like a nice little period of your life, either that season or just that week or whatever's going on. And that's what this was. This is The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden. And it's not the best book that I've ever read, but this was just a really nice experience. This was a very good book. It's the first in a series. And I think it's called The Winter Witch. Oh, the Winter Night Trilogy. That's what's normally referred to. And so this is the first book in the series, and this was at a time when my youngest daughter, we like, what do you call that, simpatico, like she used to watch all the superhero shows and everything with me, and then she got to high school and she graduated, and then all of a sudden she graduated from superhero shows, and all she wanted to watch was like teen drama with my wife. And I don't watch teen dramas, right? So that became like the thing. So we had this winter where my older daughters are both off at college, and my younger daughter every night she would finish her homework. My wife would come home from work, and they would watch teen drama together. So I got a lot of reading done that winter, and so they would go do that, and I would just go sit on the couch and read. And during that time, I read this, and so it's in the. This is a very atmospheric book. This is it's a fantasy. It's set in like medieval Russia, and it incorporates a lot of Russian folklore in it. And basically, the gist is the main character like um, Christianity's like kind of taking over and like suppressing everything else. And so there's some of these like mythological creatures from Russian folklore that are trying to survive through this, and our main character has a connection with them. And she meets this, what was he called, the Winter Demon? Or this was a few years ago that I read this, but I think the Winter Demon, whatever, was a main mythological character that she encountered that would look out for her. And so it was like set in like it was like very you it was one of those books like you could just feel the winter and the cold. And so I read this in the middle of winter. I had all these nights by myself, read in the middle of winter, sipping chilled vodka every night as I read a little bit of this book. And it was just like perfect atmosphere. And I remember it very, very fondly. Just like this was like just like that whole setting that I created when I read this book, which was a very good book, just like the perfect winter read. And so I remember that very, very fondly. And I think that's part of what, like I said, it's not just the book, but it's like what you make of a book sometimes, and what you do with it. And I think that was just a really good experience. Okay, um, a book you loved as a movie. Now I've mentioned this book before when we've done sort of these memory things, a tag or two, and this is Contact by Carl Sagan. And I loved this movie. Uh, part, I mean, in part because always like science fiction movies, but in part because this movie really, really resonated with me on a personal level. And I think they did a great job. So the movie starred Jodie Foster and Matthew McConaughey. And if you don't know what the basic story of this is, Jodie Foster is she's an astrophysicist, I guess, and she discovers a wow signal. And so if you don't know what that is, back in the 70s, some astrophysicists or astronomers had uncovered this signal called a wow signal, and it was a signal. It was like a radio signal from space that had just an unusual pattern to it, and it looked like it must have been designed. And it's called the wow signal because they circled it and wrote the word wow next to it because it was like such a great find. It wasn't repeatable. They didn't find it again. But it's famous and it's known as the wow signal, and whether it was came from some question is whether it was produced by some alien intelligence. So this book is kind of based on that. Jodie Foster just discovers like this wow signal, and so turns out there is a lot more to it. There actually is an intelligence behind it, and so it leads to a whole bunch of different things. Them exploring that further and pursuing what that means. I don't want to give it away, but she also meets um, she meets Matthew McConaughey's character, who she doesn't know at first, but who turns out to be sort of kind of a more of a modern day priest. And so they have this love affair, and so they care about each other a lot. But she is a non-religious scientist, and he is a man of the cloth, and so it creates this sort of like somewhat of a conflict, just because the whole world ends up watching this event and the developments that are, again, I don't want to spoil it, but ends up the whole world watching this and what the steps that they take as a result of this wow signal. And religion, the conflict, the unnecessary but sometimes conflict between religion and science comes into play a lot with this movie. And so the movie meant a lot for me. I've watched it many times because I was raised religious, traditional Christian, upbringing. And when I was younger, around college age, I started to think a lot more critically about it. And when I went to school, I studied a lot of science and a lot of philosophy. I double majored in physics and philosophy. And as I studied more and more of those things, I became more and more critical of my upbringing, and I became less and less religious. And now, for a very long time, I've been completely unreligious. Um, but that was, I don't want to act like a victim, but that was not always easy, especially when you have a lot of people around you and a lot of loved ones that are not going down that same path. And sometimes you feel, I still find this today, even living in this pretty accepting world that we live in today. I still find myself getting nervous sometimes to say that I'm not religious and to talk about the reasons why. Like, I feel like it's still there's still prejudice against that to some extent. So that issue was like a real issue in this movie. It was explored extensively with this relationship between the two of them, and just like the you could really feel the prejudice and the heartache from that Jodie Foster had to experience as she was trying to move forward with this and be honest about her beliefs or her lack of belief. It just really hit home personally. This movie really, really, movie just means a lot to me. Probably more than any other movie has meant to me. So that's why that's my answer to that question. So I talked about it enough. But if you would like to talk more about that movie and why I love it so much, I'd be happy to talk with anyone about it. Okay, a book you wish they would make into a movie. Okay, and so for that, I picked Nod by Adrian Barnes. This book was awesome, and I am surprised that this book is not known more than it was. This book was supposed to be, I think, a trilogy. There was supposed to be more, and unfortunately, Adrian Barnes passed away, and so he never did get to do more. But this book was, I love apocalyptic stories, or like, or like these cataclysmic events happen. And so this one was, I think, pretty unique for the time. This wasn't zombies. What this was all of a sudden the whole world was struck by this affliction of sleeplessness, except for very few rare individuals, like our main character, who was actually able to still sleep. But everybody else couldn't. And when you can't sleep, it does not take long for just like you can barely survive after very long. I mean, you start to hallucinate. I mean, as in just a matter of a few days, you start to hallucinate, and you start to lose your mind, basically. And so you see the degeneration of society over time, and what happens to the total structure of society completely unravels. The certain individuals that rise up with just all sorts of crazy things that people in these like sleepless hazes will follow and go along with, and just act like completely crazy. And eventually you will die. I mean, you can't last too long without any sleep. But so our main character is living through this and watching people that he knows, people that he cares about, going through this, and he's like one of the only ones that's able to sleep. And it's very harrowing novel. And I thought it was very original and very, very well told. So this is a great concept, I think, for a movie. We see all these movies about like vampire apocalypse, zombie apocalypse. This is, or like those hate. We did a video about this not that long ago, but like hate-based apocalypses, like 28 Days Later, like rage viruses and things like that. But I haven't seen one like this. I don't remember seeing a movie like this. If you know of one, tell me, because I haven't seen it. But I think this would be a great concept for a movie, so I'd love to see that one. Okay, let's see, a book character that you would like as a friend. So this was actually the hardest one for me, and I don't know why. but like I said, I cut myself off in 15 minutes, so I just went with the best that I had. And this is a book that I managed to talk about all the time. It was one of the first, if not the first, full-fledged novel that I ever read, and and it is so. I'll show you the one that you can see. This is the copy you can actually like is visible. Dragonlance Chronicles Volume 1, Dragons of Autumn Twilight. So this is actually my copy because I first read this as a young teen, I guess. And as you can see, I've read it numerous times throughout the years. That's why it looks so rough. I bought a newer copy for my daughter, one of my daughters, to get her to read it. So that one you can actually make it out a little bit. So this spawned a huge, massive series by many authors. There's over 100 books now, I think. And but anyway, so it has a special place in my heart. Not a great quality book, has a special place in my heart. And the character, one of the characters in this is a fantasy. A lot of them were traditional races: elves, dwarves, humans, orcs, those sort of things. But there was a novel race in this series called the Kender, and a major character was this Kender called Tasselhoff Burfoot, and he was a major source of comedic relief. And what a great character! So the Kenders they had no fear. They were fearless, and they were thieves, but they were good-natured thieves. They were actually very good-hearted. They didn't they were pickpockets, and they would always pickpocket everybody, but they didn't view it as being a thief. They would view it as like borrowing. And so they were actually good-hearted characters that stole from everybody. And but I love Tasselhoff Burfoot. He was a great character, and he was so much fun. He had all the fun adventures in these books, and so I would love to be Tasselhoff Burfoot friend, because I know he'd have great adventures, and it would be endless laughs. And he was fearless, so we had no fear. We'd be able to do all sorts of crazy adventures. So that was what I picked for that. Okay, boy, I feel like we've been going a long time. We've been a long time. Yeah, you're passing out. You want to pick me up here? Well, pick me up. She used to be more energetic in these videos, and as we've gone on, now she needs to pick me ups. I didn't used to give her pick me ups. You have not answered any of these questions. Do you have any? You have any answers to these? Let's see. What was the next one? A place you want to visit because of a book you read. You have an answer to this? I had a hard time with this. Do you have one for this? What do you think? Nothing? You got nothing? Okay. So this is not the best answer, but it's the one I came up quickly with. I have mentioned this before. This is a memoir I read called I Am an Island by Tamsin Cletus. This is I don't usually read memoirs, and this is one of those books. Would not have picked it up in the bookstore, but a booktuber recommended it very, very highly, so I picked it up, loved it. As you can see, I tabbed it up a bit. I don't usually tab books up like this much. Not that that's that much, but I don't usually do that. But written beautifully, and this was about a woman that went to manage. It was like a very professional life. Her and her husband, they were young, professional lives. I think in London, or I don't know, some in a major city, and then they decided to give it up and move to an island in the Scottish Hebrides to manage a croft. And everything goes bad. Husband leaves her. She becomes destitute, breaks her hands. The community shuns her. All sorts of hardship. And this is a memoir about her persevering. And it's just great. It's great. So it's a true story. So it's a great story. It's beautifully written. And I still follow her on Instagram because she's still there. And it looks beautiful. It's like it's island, Scottish Hebrides. It's very the opposite of living in the city. And so it seems like it'd be a nice place to visit. I don't know about living there, but it seems like it'd be a nice place to visit. So that was my quick pick for that book. Okay, a nonfiction, is that where I am? Number 9? Yeah, nonfiction book you would recommend. So this one, I couldn't find it quick, but I also did a reorganization, which I'll have to show you guys. But I got new bookshelves, moved all the nonfiction downstairs for the new book. Right now they're just in big piles down there. and filled up all the shelves here with all the nonfiction stuff because it was a mess. Um, so I don't. I couldn't find the book quickly. I don't know where it is, but this is uh, the the Blind Watchmaker was the title by Richard Dawkins. So we have a bunch of Richard Dawkins stuff. Um, who was a scientist, naturalist, biologist, and so he's done a number of books on evolution, and this book, The Blind Watchmaker, was kind of he's tackled this issue of basically the concept of like why evolution is clearly true. Um, so this is another one of those things like it's like shouldn't be controversial to say anymore, but it's like in today's world, like like unlike 50 years ago, it's not debatable anymore. We call it the theory of evolution. It's not a theory anymore. It's fact. It's scientific fact. A lot of many different pieces of evidence for that, including the fact that we can view it happen in sorts of things like bacteria and stuff where we can watch many generations evolve, right? And there's but it's still a topic where a lot of people think it's still a topic for debate sometimes. And I just need to qualify this that it doesn't matter what your spiritual or religious or philosophical beliefs is, or like whether you're religious or non-religious, it doesn't matter. Just the issue of evolution itself is scientific fact today, which is why things like theistic evolution and stuff have cropped up, because you can't really deny that anymore. But a lot of people do. And so Richard Dawkins has written a number of books where he has tackled it from different angles. And The Blind Watchmaker is a good one, I think, because I think one common misconception that people have, where they think evolution is not true because there are things that are so complex that they are necessarily designed. Like when you look at the human eye, let's say, this is so complex the way that it works, like it can only be the product of some kind of intelligent design. And the analogy that's often used is in this sort of argumentation is like it's like you have a plane hangar with just a bunch of random jumbo jet planes on the floor, and a tornado comes in and just whips around and assembles a jet plane. Like that's what you're saying when you say like that the evolution created the human eye, that this tornado comes in and just assembled this jumbo jet, like in an instant like that. And that's not the way it works. It's kind of hard to wrap your mind around the time scales that we're talking about, but evolution happens in very, very small gradual incremental changes over very, very long periods of time. And so when you have environmental pressure and just incredible amounts of time, very, very small gradual changes inevitably lead to advantageous evolutions of features. And so that's what this Blind Watchmaker book, that's kind of the angle that book talks about, and explains like that these are not designs that happen instantaneously. These are very small, almost noticeable incremental changes that happen for very small isolated reasons that add up over time, and over vast amounts of time look like design, even though they're just the results of individual, just small changes, resulting from environmental pressure over time. I think that's a very good book. I mean, it's not like the only or the best book about the subject, but tackling it from the design perspective, I think it gives a lot of nice insight. Okay, and so last one is, if you could hang out with an author all day, who would you pick and why? And so that, I mean, our favorite author of late, who is Adrian Tchaikovsky, who wrote Children of Time, who we have talked about endlessly. I mean, he's written a bunch of, ton of science fiction books and fantasy. We've read a number of them that we've talked about in videos and in recent time, and there are a lot more that we have to read, including Cage of Souls, that Gareth still needs a buddy read with us. But So we love him. We think he's an incredible science fiction author. So many great big ideas, very speculative, not afraid to push the boundaries. And he just has a lot of really, really great ideas. Like his mind works pretty incredibly, and so would love to spend time with him. I'd love to talk to him, love to have dinner with him, like just spending time with him and just picking his brain and talking to him about where he gets all these incredible ideas and stuff. It would be awesome. And is that what it said? It was yeah. If you could hang out with an author all day, yeah, so that would be a great day. I mean, I'd be like, he'd get sick of me. I'd be asking him so many questions. So that's my answer for that one. So that about does it. So that's all 10 prompts. So yeah. So we'll leave it at that. So we want to. Oh, we have to tag some people. So thanks, Gareth, for tagging us. Thanks, Gina, for creating the tag, and we're looking forward to watching some of your videos on your channel. And then who will we tag? Let's see. I think we will tag. We're going to tag our friend Dia over at Novel Idea because she has a lot of different tastes with us. With a lot of we buddy read some stuff, but she has a lot of different tastes and likes a lot of different things. So I'd be curious to see her answers about this. I'm going to tag Michael over at Michael K. Vaughn. I would like to see his answers to some of this. We have a lot of similar tastes, so I'd be curious to see some of his stuff. And I think I'm trying to think who. I know some people have been tagged already. Who else am I going to tag? Oh, you know who I'm going to tag? Because she's been tagging me or us. Sorry, Olive. She's been tagging us. The pick me up is Pat over at Book Chat with Pat. I'd like to see her answer. She's been doing a lot of tags lately, so I want to add one more to your list, Pat. I don't think you've done this one yet. So, all right, so we'll leave it at that because we're going to be doing a bunch of tags. So we're going to tag a bunch of other people on a bunch of other ones. So thanks for sticking with us all this time. I think we went for a long time on this tag. So we'll get better at them. We'll get quicker. We're not used to doing tags. So, all right. You have anything to add? You got anything further on this? Anything further, Olive? No? No, she makes me do all the work. I mean, she does all the behind the scenes editing and everything. So, we got to split up the duties. But she makes me do all the talking. So, okay. So, let us know if you've read any of these, or if you have some cool answers to some of these questions. We'd be curious to hear those. If you don't have anything substantive to say, you can always leave Olive a puppy emoji, right? Because you do always like to see those, right? You always like to see those. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you again very soon. But in the meantime, take care of yourselves and each other, and we'll see you next time.